In this short video, I want to talk about why Russia fears Ukraine. It sounds counterintuitive, but there's really something to this. A fully functional, Western integrated, not even NATO member necessarily, but just Western alternative to Russia is terrifying to the Russians. Like this is really a bad thing from their perspective, and here's why. So let's start and looking at this. Back in 1990, Putin insisted Russia doesn't want Crimea and warned that redrawing international borders would be a disaster. So here's what he actually had to say. We don't like that Ukraine wants to join NATO. We want to take Crimea. Or is it just that we can't agree on money, gas, sugar? What's the main problem between us and Ukraine? First of all, we do not want to take Crimea. That's what Putin said in 1999. Now, remember, in 1999, Russia was incredibly weak. The 90s were terrible for the post-Soviet system. They were going through a lot of turmoil, and like you start with the breakup in 1991. By 1994 or 5, the Ukraine had given its nukes away in the Budapest Memorandum, and then by 1999, this is where we are. First of all, we do not want to take Crimea. That's absolute nonsense. Listen to what Putin says. If we start taking something from someone, then something of ours will definitely be taken in return. Well, you've got that right. There's something like that that's coming. There's retribution coming your way. Or we'll lose something. In any case, we'll trigger a redrawing of borders across the former Soviet Union that we'll never be able to recover from. Okay, so the idea here is that they're trying to do this now that they feel their strength. They feel like they're strong enough to be able to do it. So they're muscling in on Georgia and Ukraine and Moldova, and I mean, they almost got away with having a political coup in Romania. Okay, on the territory of the Russian Federation alone, there are 400 disputed areas. 400. I want everyone to know that. That's the first thing. Secondly, sugar and gas are secondary. There's a third area, perhaps, where disagreements can arise, but just that, disagreements, nothing more. The main problem, in my view, is Russia's heavy imperial legacy. Okay, so he admits that there was an imperial legacy, but he's kind of brought the imperial legacy back, and he's done this while glorifying Stalin, putting up 90 of the 110 or so monuments to Stalin in Russia right now were put up during Putin's time in office. Everyone, for some reason, believes that Russia is still an empire. And now, those who are applauding, listen to me carefully. Everyone believes that Russia remains an empire and still treats it like one, but that hasn't been true for a long time. This is Putin talking from a position of weakness. This is where Putin has to go back to, because now that he feels like he can do it, he's going to try to push out the borders of the empire back to encompass Ukraine. Like Dugin has said that without and others have said this as well, not just Dugin, but without Ukraine, Russia is just a nation. With Ukraine, it can be an empire, and that's what they're going for. Okay, now let's go back and understand this. We thought that Ukraine wasn't going anywhere. A major strategic mistake in the early 1990s, said Sergei Stepashin, head of Russian government in 1991. Listen to what he has to say. As for Ukraine, well, we thought it wasn't going anywhere. I believe it was a major strategic mistake in the early 1990s. We thought it wouldn't go anywhere, that it's a brotherly nation. It'll come to its senses. Now, he's saying that and saying, like, understand that the Russians see Ukrainians as inferior Russians who are really kind of one people, a little bit lesser than, but now they have become Ukrainians and traitors against Russia, speaking a different language, turning against Russia, joining the West. They're horrible, and they need to be exterminated for that reason. This is the way the Russian mind works. We thought it wouldn't go anywhere, but over there, the Yankees, Western Europe, anyone who felt like it were working systematically, and did we even have the strength or the resources to engage them? Listen, in the 1990s, late 1990s, when Putin was talking here, they didn't have the strength. Once they achieved what they thought was the strength to be able to do it, they started doing it. They started doing it in the early 2000s, in 2004, and then in 2014 again, and so on and so forth. Okay, we could have looked for the right people to work with. As a former FSB director, I can say we missed the moment. Unfortunately, we missed it. And now you see, after 30 years, their minds have been so thoroughly brainwashed. I was in Mariupol right after it was liberated. I looked at the books in the school libraries. Horrifying, just horrifying. These are Russian people. Again, that's what the Russians will try to explain, that the Ukrainians are just Russians who don't know how Russia Russian they are, and they're brainwashed and they're turning traitor against the glorious Russian state. A Russian city. This is Azov, the god of the sea. So now we have to make up for lost time, unfortunately. Well, what does he mean by that? Well, now we have to go crush them and take over because we let this thing fester where they were having their freedom, right? Oh, they want freedom for the Donetsk Oblast, but they don't want freedom for Ukraine, who doesn't want to be under Russia's thumb. And that's the case. If Ukraine just wanted to have a puppet government and do whatever Putin said, none of this would have been happening, right? But when they want to have their own independence, true independence, that's what's causing this in the minds of the Russians, who are saying, "Hey, you're being traitors." Okay, let's go on to the next thing. I hope the world and Trump finally hears what Putin propagandists have never even tried to hide. Russia doesn't want peace. It wants victory by erasing Ukraine as a free country and Ukrainians as a nation. Here's Solov saying this right now on his channel. Did we get closer to peace or not? Why do we need peace? We had a key thread. You don't get it again. Chania, you are the one who needs peace. Do I need it? Everyone needs it. No, we need victory. We have a completely different task. Okay, that's the way that the Russians see this. It's not about peace. It's not about living together with the Ukrainians who are next to us. It's about putting them under your thumb again, putting them under your boot. That's why they're doing what they're doing. Okay, let's go on to the next. While the rest of Europe shares happy photos from their holidays, this is what Ukrainians are sharing. We are not doing nearly enough to stop Russia. No crippling sanctions, not enough for help for Ukraine, no visa bans for Russians, still buying oil and gas from Russia. And Ukrainians are the ones that are paying the price. This is a guide to how to survive under rubble, advice from hospitalers and the state emergency service. Right? That's where Ukrainians are. Now, the question is, why does Russia fear Ukrainians? And again, I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. It's surprising how the Russians fear even the word Ukraine. They refer to soldiers who died in Afghanistan, the North Caucasus, and a special military operation, right, without providing any geographical context. And look at the numbers of these wars, like the special military operations off the chart, right? Here's Afghanistan and North Caucasus, and here is the whole thing of, yeah. So, but why do they fear Ukraine, right? Ukraine is an alternative. It shows Russia's weakness. It shows Russia's impotence. It's an alternative that can't exist if they're going to keep the status quo the way it is. And I think that's what's going on here. For the Russians, Ukraine is a threat just because they exist. And for the Russians, they need to exterminate the Ukrainians as a consequence. And that's the rub. All right, my friends, tell me what you think about this. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.